The hangar was silent, except for the soft hiss of leaking steam and the distant hum of the space station above. Dust floated in the dim light, catching the occasional spark from a broken console. In the center of the hall lay a dragon, small but powerful looking, its scales dull and wings twisted in an awkward angle. The creature tried to stretch, but a faint whine escaped its throat. It was clear the dragon could not fly, not like the others, not ever, maybe. Its body was strong, but its wings betrayed it. A woman stood at the edge of the hangar, arms crossed and face tilted with a smirk. Her armor shimmered in the low light, gold and red like a warning. "Look at this," she said, voice sharp. "They call this a dragon? It cannot even lift itself from the floor." She laughed, loud and cruel, echoing across the hangar walls. Her eyes turned to the human standing near a stack of tools, a young man in plain overalls, dirty and tired from hours of work. "And you," she said, pointing, "a human mechanic. Tell me, do you fix broken toys for fun?" The human said nothing. He tightened his grip on a wrench, letting her words wash over him without reply. His eyes, calm but watchful, were fixed on the dragon. The creature's scales shimmered faintly under the light, a soft silver gray, and its amber eyes followed the human with something almost like hope. No one had treated it kindly for years. They all laughed, they all mocked. Only this human stayed still, quiet and strangely attentive. The woman continued her ridicule, pacing like a predator. "I will not forget this day," she said, voice rising. "The galaxy's finest dragons cannot fly and humans think they can repair them? Pathetic." She stepped closer to the dragon and waved her hand. "Try to lift your wings, little toy. Show me you are anything more than a broken mistake." The dragon trembled but did not respond. Its head hung low and a soft, trembling sound came from its throat. The human crouched beside it, careful not to frighten the creature. "It's not useless," he said quietly, almost to himself. He touched a twisted wing gently, feeling the stiffness, the old scars, the signs of something forced upon it long ago. The dragon leaned slightly toward his hand as if it recognized his voice, his presence. He studied the wing carefully, noting the bent bone, the stress fractures, and the faded marks from old modifications. No ordinary injury, he thought. Something had been done to it deliberately. The woman noticed him touching the dragon and scowled. "Stop wasting your time, human," she snapped. "Nothing you do can make it worth a dragon's place in the sky. Stand aside before I—" Her words ended in a frustrated growl as the dragon raised its head slightly, amber eyes locking onto hers. For a moment even the proud woman paused. The dragon did not roar, it did not attack. It only stared, a silent challenge that seemed to fill the hangar with tension. The human ignored the woman. He worked quietly, feeling the joints and membranes of the dragon's wings. "You weren't meant to be broken," he whispered. "Someone did this to you, didn't they?" The dragon tilted its head and a small sound escaped, a soft, almost hopeful trill. It was a sound no one else had ever heard, a sound that said maybe, just maybe, someone still cared. The human nodded. "I will try," he said. "Not to change you but to help you be yourself." The woman scoffed again. "You hear that?" she said, loud enough for anyone in the hangar to hear. "The human thinks he can fix what nature and history have ruined. It will die under your hands." She turned sharply, walking toward the exit. "Do not think I will forget your failure," she added over her shoulder. The human said nothing. He only kept his hands on the dragon, his eyes scanning every detail, every scar. Hours passed. The light shifted from dim yellow to pale blue as the station's cycles moved overhead. The dragon made small movements, testing its strength, as if trusting the human's presence was enough to start believing it could move again. The mechanic found old data pads and schematics, scattered in piles on the hangar floor. He studied them, cross-referencing details about wing mechanics and flight muscles. Nothing was simple. Dragons were not machines. But the human had patience. Humans always had patience. Sometimes the dragon twitched. Sometimes it shivered. But the human remained calm. He spoke softly, in short sentences the dragon seemed to understand. "Easy. Don't push too hard. I am here." The dragon leaned closer, resting its head on the human's knee, a small sign of trust. This startled the woman when she passed the hangar's doors. She paused, watching the quiet bond forming, and her lips pressed in a thin line. Mockery had not prepared her for this scene. The dragon, once useless, showing the faintest flicker of hope because of a human. Night fell on the station. Lights dimmed, the hum of engines filling the emptiness. The human sat beside the dragon, reading notes, checking joints, testing movements with careful hands. Every small adjustment, every careful motion, seemed to bring the dragon a little more control over its wings. A wing twitched. A head lifted. A soft trill escaped its throat. He smiled faintly. "That's it," he whispered. "Small steps. You will fly again." The hangar was silent again, except for the soft breathing of the dragon and the faint scratch of the human's tools. The woman had gone to report the situation, likely to mock him again later. But for now, in the quiet hangar filled with dust and broken machines, a human and a dragon shared a fragile trust. Neither spoke of pride, neither sought glory. The dragon only leaned closer. The human only kept his hands steady, gentle, patient. In that silence, the first seeds of change had been planted. No one else would believe it. The galaxy thought humans weak, incapable, inferior. Yet here, in the shadow of mocking eyes, a human touched what others ignored. He saw the hidden truth. Not every disability was permanent, not every failure was final. And the dragon, once abandoned and laughed at, dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, it could fly again. The hangar smelled of oil and metal, cold and quiet except for the soft scrape of the human's tools. The dragon lay on the floor, its wings folded awkwardly, but its amber eyes followed every movement. The woman who had mocked it before had left, her laughter echoing faintly in memory, but the human did not care. He studied the dragon carefully, watching how it shifted weight, how the muscles under its scales moved when it tried to lift its wings. Something about the pattern of injury did not make sense. It was not a simple accident. He knelt closer, eyes scanning every scar and joint. The wings were twisted, yes, but the bones were not shattered. The muscles were stiff, yes, but not dead. Whoever had done this had tried to bend the dragon into a weapon rather than let it live freely. He frowned. Humans had long histories of altering machines, but dragons were not machines. They were living, thinking, feeling beings. And yet, someone had treated this one as if it were only a tool. The dragon watched him quietly, its small head tilting as if it understood his thoughts. Every so often it would make a soft sound, almost like a whisper. The human reached out, stroking the side of its neck. "I see you," he said softly. "I see what they did to you. And I will fix it." The dragon shivered, leaning closer to him, trusting him more than any of the humans or aliens who had mocked it before. It was a small gesture, but in that hangar filled with cold steel and dust, it meant everything. He moved to a pile of old schematics and data pads, flipping through yellowed pages and flickering screens. Some showed wing mechanics, old experimental files, and military modifications. His eyes narrowed. These documents were meant to create stronger, faster dragons for combat, not to care for them. The dragon had been an experiment, forced to endure modifications that weakened it in the long run. The thought made him tighten his hands around a wrench, but he spoke gently, knowing the dragon would feel tension. "It's okay," he whispered. "I will not make you weak. I will make you strong again in your own way." He began small repairs, not with brute force but with care. He tested the joints, moving them slowly, watching the dragon's reactions. Each twitch of the wings was like a tiny victory. The dragon tried to lift them slightly, only a few inches, and his eyes brightened. "There," he said. "I see movement. That is the start." He adjusted old supports, removed rusted fasteners, and applied a lubricant that seemed safe for scales. It was tedious work, but the human had patience. Humans always had patience. The dragon stayed still, mostly watching, listening, but gradually it began to respond. A wing twitched. A small sound escaped its throat, a trill of curiosity. The human smiled faintly, nodding. "You understand, don't you?" he said. "We have to take it slowly. We can't rush this." The dragon leaned closer, resting its head near his knee. It was a sign of trust, and the human felt it deeply. No one else had ever earned this trust. Not even the noblewoman who mocked it daily. Hours passed, and the human worked in silence. Sometimes he paused to examine data pads again, cross-checking old notes on muscle repair and bone alignment. He found traces of previous attempts, all rough, all violent, all designed to force the dragon into flight when it was not ready. No wonder it had been disabled. He muttered to himself, carefully avoiding loud noises that might startle the dragon. "They tried to break you. But I will help you move on your own terms." From outside the hangar, the faint sounds of other dragons could be heard, gliding in the open skies of the station. The dragon on the floor raised its head, amber eyes watching them. It wanted to join, to fly, to feel wind beneath its wings. But fear and pain held it down. The human noticed the longing in its gaze. "I see it," he said softly. "I see how much you want to fly. And you will. But first we have to fix the small things." He examined the wing bones again, testing alignment, tracing the lines of force across the joints. He realized something. The dragon could move if the muscles and tendons were realigned, if old modifications were carefully reversed. It would take hours, maybe days, but it was possible. Humans were not strong like dragons, but they were clever. The dragon seemed to sense it, shifting slightly as if to cooperate. The human encouraged it, his hands steady, gentle, patient. Suddenly, the noblewoman returned, her shadow falling across the hangar doors. "Still at it?" she sneered, her voice sharp. "Do you think touching it will make it fly? You cannot change what nature and history have ruined." The dragon stirred nervously, but the human did not flinch. He simply placed a hand on its back and looked at her calmly. "Watch and learn," he said softly. "Or step aside." She scoffed, folding her arms, but for the first time she paused. The dragon twitched its wings slightly, responding to the human's careful guidance. Her eyes narrowed. "Impossible," she whispered. "How can a human?" The human ignored her. He continued, adjusting a joint, testing a tendon, encouraging the dragon. Another tiny movement. A wing lifted an inch. A soft trill escaped its throat. She blinked. It was moving. Not fully, not like the others, but it was moving. The human nodded, almost to himself. "There," he whispered. "You see? You are not broken. You are learning again." The dragon leaned closer, trusting him completely now. The bond was growing, quiet but unbreakable. In the cold hangar, filled with dust and broken machines, a small miracle was unfolding. A human who looked closer than anyone else, a dragon who dared to hope again. As night fell on the station, lights dimming to soft blues and grays, the human kept working. The dragon tried small movements, resting, watching, and learning. No one else in the galaxy would believe it. They mocked him, they mocked the dragon. But here, in the hangar, the impossible was slowly coming true. Trust, patience, and careful observation could achieve what strength and status never could. And the human knew it. This was only the beginning. The hangar was quiet at first, just the soft hum of the station and the scraping of the human's tools. The dragon lay on the floor, watching him carefully, trusting him more with every movement. Its wings twitched slightly as he adjusted a joint and tested a tendon. Small successes, tiny improvements, but they were enough to give hope. Then the alarms went off. Red lights flashed across the hangar, and the soft hum turned into a loud, urgent siren. A breach had been detected in the station's outer hull. Defense dragons were needed immediately. The noblewoman, who had returned to oversee the human's work, gasped and ran toward the dragon. "Move it. It must fly," she shouted. "Do not waste time with this weak human nonsense." The dragon froze. It had never flown under pressure before. Its wings stiffened, trembling as panic surged through its body. The noblewoman grabbed at it, trying to force it up, but the creature hissed in fear and recoiled. The human stepped in quickly, placing himself between them. "Stop," he shouted. "You cannot force it. Not like that." The noblewoman spun toward him, fury in her amber eyes. "Step aside. I command it. If it does not fly, we lose the station." Her voice echoed, angry and sharp. The human said nothing, only kept his hands raised, calm and steady. The dragon pressed close to him, seeking safety. It was clear it would not obey through fear, not with her yelling, not under threat. The alarms grew louder, warning of the incoming threat. Ships were approaching the station, small but fast, testing the outer defenses. The other dragons stirred, ready to launch. All eyes were on the human and the disabled dragon. The noblewoman's pride burned hotter than the alarms. "If you fail," she snapped, "it will be your fault, human." The human knelt beside the dragon, whispering gently. "It's okay," he said. "We can do this together. One small step. Just trust me." The dragon tilted its head, soft amber eyes locking on him, and made a small, uncertain sound. He smiled faintly. "Good. That's the first sign. We can work with that." He took a small tool, improvised a support brace using a few metal rods and wires, and began adjusting the damaged wings slowly, carefully, without causing pain. The noblewoman watched, scowling. "Pathetic," she muttered. "The human fiddles while we face disaster." But the human ignored her. He worked quietly, steadily, each adjustment helping the dragon gain a fraction more control. It was slow, too slow for her taste, but the dragon responded. A small flap, almost accidental, and the human encouraged it. "Yes, that's it." Another tiny move. The dragon pressed its head against him, trusting him completely, ignoring the woman's shouts. Seconds turned into minutes, but each second counted. The approaching ships were getting closer, scanning for weaknesses in the station's defenses. The other dragons were ready, But the disabled dragon's absence left a critical gap. The human had no time for hesitation. He calculated quickly, combining the small improvements he had made with a clever trick. Using a small magnetic support and a carefully placed pulley, he helped the dragon lift slightly off the ground. The noblewoman gasped. "Impossible," she shouted. The dragon flapped again, this time a little higher. It hovered for a moment, unsure, but it did not fall. The human encouraged it, his voice calm and patient. "Keep going. Small steps. You can do this." The dragon's wings moved more confidently, muscles reacting to his gentle guidance. Another flap, another lift, and it hovered higher, catching balance. Panic filled the noblewoman's face. She had expected a failure, a human crushed under the weight of responsibility, but this was not what she saw. The dragon was rising. Not fully, not like the other dragons, but it was moving under its own power with the human's help. She stepped back, watching, her pride clashing with disbelief. The human did not stop. He used every small trick he knew, leveraging levers, braces, and his understanding of balance and movement. The dragon's wings flapped harder, gaining strength, and for the first time, it lifted fully off the ground. It hovered in the center of the hangar, shaking slightly, eyes wide, tail flicking for balance. The human stayed beneath it, hands ready to support if it fell, but trusting it to try. The approaching ships fired a warning beam. Other dragons swooped to intercept, but the human had an idea. He guided the dragon toward the opening of the hangar. Using its regained strength, the creature glided, almost clumsily, but enough to position itself at the edge. The human jumped onto its back carefully, holding on tight. For the first time, the dragon carried him, not as a burden but as a partner. The noblewoman could only watch, mouth open, as the dragon flapped its wings fully, rising into the hangar bay. Its amber eyes shone with determination, and the human held on, steadying it. "Good," he shouted. "Keep going. You can do this." The dragon responded, flapping harder, moving toward the approaching ships. With each beat of its wings, it gained speed and confidence. The small threat ships, surprised by the sudden lift, veered away, unable to match the dragon's unexpected maneuver. The hangar erupted in tension and awe. Other dragons noticed, following the disabled dragon's lead. The human had not forced it, had not yelled, had not threatened. He had worked patiently, observing, adjusting, and trusting the dragon to respond. And it had. Against all odds, it had risen when everyone thought it could not. Finally, after a few tense minutes, the danger passed. The approaching ships retreated, the alarms ceased, and the station systems returned to normal. The dragon hovered for a moment, wings spread wide, breathing heavily but alive, whole in a way it had not been for years. The human climbed down carefully, brushing dust from his overalls, smiling faintly. The dragon lowered its head to him, soft trill of acknowledgement escaping its throat. The noblewoman, still at the edge of the hangar, could not find words. Her mockery had turned to panic and now to disbelief. The human had done what she thought impossible. She had commanded and threatened, but it was patience, understanding, and quiet skill that saved the day. The dragon, once mocked and helpless, had risen under the care of a human she had dismissed as weak. In the quiet aftermath, only the hum of the station remained. The dragon circled the hangar once, wings strong and confident now. The human watched, knowing this was only the beginning. The galaxy thought humans weak, inferior, unable to handle dragons or power. But here in the hangar, the impossible had been done. A human had guided a broken dragon to rise again, proving that patience, trust, and cleverness could overcome fear and mockery. And the dragon would never forget who had helped it rise. The hangar smelled of burnt oil and warm metal. The dragon hovered near the ceiling, wings strong now, moving with precision. Its amber eyes followed the human mechanic as he adjusted a few cables and inspected the wing joints one last time. The noblewoman stood to the side, arms crossed, her face pale with a mixture of shock and anger. She had mocked the human for days, laughed at the dragon for years, but now she realized she had never truly understood either of them. The human crouched beside the dragon, whispering softly. "You are stronger than they thought," he said. "Not because of me but because you never stopped trying even when no one believed in you." The dragon made a soft trill in response, leaning its head toward him. It had not only regained movement but it had regained trust. And for the human, that trust was more important than any medal or praise. The noblewoman's eyes narrowed. She wanted to shout, to reclaim authority, to remind everyone that she commanded dragons and humans alike. But deep down she realized that the truth was undeniable. The dragon's strength was not the result of her orders. It was the result of patience, careful observation, and a human who refused to give up. Pride burned in her chest, but for the first time she could not hide the truth. The human stepped away from the dragon and began examining old records that had been left in the hangar. Among them were logs of modifications, notes from engineers long gone, and files about combat experiments. He flipped through them quickly, scanning for anything relevant. His eyes widened as he discovered something important. The dragon had not been disabled by accident. It had been intentionally altered, its wings weakened, its muscles constrained. The noblewoman's ancestors had approved the changes to make dragons more controllable in battle. He glanced at her without saying a word. She followed his gaze and saw what he had discovered. Her mouth opened, but no words came. The past she had ignored, the cruelty hidden in official records, now stared her in the face. The dragon, hovering silently, seemed to sense the shift in the air. It tilted its head and looked at her with quiet understanding, as if it had always known the truth. You did this?" she whispered finally, voice trembling. "This dragon, my dragon, was made weak by my own family?" She turned away, unable to meet the human's eyes, unable to meet the dragon's. Shame filled her chest like a weight she could not lift. All her mocking, all her ridicule, now seemed empty and cruel. She had believed she was strong, commanding, unshakable. But the truth was far more complicated. The human said nothing. He only placed a hand on the dragon's neck, steadying it as it hovered. "It is not too late to make things right," he said softly. "You can choose now what kind of leader you want to be. Not by punishing, not by forcing, but by understanding." The dragon gave a small trill, almost as if agreeing. Its wings stretched fully, powerful and free, a symbol of what care and patience could achieve. The noblewoman swallowed hard. She had always thought she controlled everything. Dragons, humans, the station itself. But she could not control trust, not skill, not courage. The human had achieved what she could not. He had guided the dragon to rise not with force but with care. And in doing so he had revealed her ignorance. Across the hangar, other crew members whispered, watching the scene unfold. Some had expected the human to fail, others had doubted the dragon would ever lift itself. But now the truth was clear. The human had not just repaired wings, he had restored dignity, courage and freedom. The dragon circled the hangar once, its flight smooth and confident. No one had seen it move like this in years. The noblewoman's chest tightened. She realized she had underestimated the human, underestimated the dragon, and underestimated the value of patience. The human turned to her finally, calm but firm. "You mocked what you did not understand," he said quietly. "You thought strength came from power and status, from orders and fear. But real strength comes from helping what others ignore. You could have seen this sooner, but at least you see it now." The noblewoman lowered her eyes. She felt small not because of the human's words, but because she understood them. The dragon landed near the human's feet, wings folding neatly now, muscles relaxed but ready. It looked at the woman, then back at the human. The message was clear. It trusted the one who cared, not the one who commanded. And for the first time the noblewoman understood what that meant. Power was not given, it was earned. Respect was not demanded, it was shown. The human smiled faintly, brushing dust from his overalls. "We have work to do," he said. "But at least we start with truth." The noblewoman nodded slowly. It was not pride or victory that moved her, but recognition. Recognition of mistakes, recognition of cruelty hidden in the past, recognition of what a human could achieve when treated as more than a servant. In the following hours, the noblewoman began to help, reluctantly at first, then with growing understanding. She learned how the human repaired the wing, how he observed the dragon's small movements, how he adjusted with care instead of force. Every small step the dragon took reinforced what the human had shown. Patience, attention, and empathy could achieve what commands and mockery never would. By the end of the day, the hangar was quiet again, filled with light and warmth. The dragon perched on a raised platform, wings resting comfortably. The human leaned against a column, tired but satisfied. The noblewoman stood nearby, watching, no words left to mock or belittle. She had learned a lesson that she would never forget. Arrogance and pride could not create strength, but understanding, care, and patience could. And the dragon, once grounded and mocked, now moved with confidence and freedom. Its eyes glimmered with intelligence and gratitude. The human had not only repaired wings, he had restored hope. And the noblewoman realized that sometimes the truth was the hardest thing to face, but it was also the most powerful. For the first time she felt small in a way that was not weakness but clarity. The human had shown her what it meant to truly lead, and the dragon had shown her what it meant to trust. The hangar, once a place of mockery and failure, had become a place of learning, growth, and quiet victory. The galaxy outside the station might never know what had happened here, but inside, a small miracle had been achieved. And the truth, painful and unavoidable, had changed everything. The hangar was quiet, calm, and bright with the first light of the station's cycle. The dragon perched proudly on the raised platform, wings fully stretched, shining under the artificial sunlight. Its amber eyes scanned the room, watching every movement carefully, but now there was no fear. The human mechanic sat nearby, hands resting on his knees, tired but calm. He had done what no one thought possible. He had guided a disabled dragon back to strength. The noble woman stood at the edge of the hangar, her pride replaced with a careful, quiet respect. She no longer spoke sharply, no longer mocked the human or the dragon. Instead, she watched and listened, trying to understand what had happened. She realized that she had misjudged everything: humans, dragons, patience, trust. She had thought power came from command and fear, but now she saw the truth. Across the station, whispers spread quickly. Crew members, engineers, and other dragons' riders told each other the story. A human had repaired a dragon that was supposed to be useless. The dragon had flown under human guidance, faced a real threat, and survived. It was not just a small victory, it was a symbol. Everyone began to ask questions. Why had the dragon been disabled? How had a human done what the greatest riders could not? The human did not care for fame. He quietly moved among tools and schematics, making small adjustments, checking on the dragon, and ensuring everything was safe. He did not need medals or praise. For him, the dragon's trust and recovery were enough. He spoke softly to the dragon. "You did it. Not me. You flew because you believed in yourself. I just helped." The dragon trilled happily, nuzzling him, wings folding in contentment. The noblewoman stepped closer, finally finding her voice. I see it now," she said softly. "I thought strength meant orders and status. But you've shown me, it is more than that." The human looked up at her, calm but firm. Strength is not about forcing others. It's about understanding, helping, and giving them a chance to grow. You can learn that too if you choose. She nodded, slowly realizing she had been wrong all along. Word of the human's achievement spread beyond the station. Other star systems, other dragon clans, even high-ranking officials in the Dragon Empire heard of the story. Reports described how a human, small and underestimated, had repaired a dragon that was thought hopeless. They described how the human had guided it gently, carefully, without threats or force, until it regained strength and confidence. Across the galaxy, the story inspired disbelief, curiosity, and admiration. Some scoffed at first. "How can a human compete with dragons?" they asked. Others laughed. "It must be luck." But then evidence arrived. Data logs, recordings, and witnesses. They could see the dragon flying steadily, following the human's guidance but moving with its own strength. They could see the care, the observation, the patience. It was not luck. It was human skill, intelligence, and determination. The dragon became a symbol of what humans could achieve. Other dragons, once skeptical of humans, began to trust them more. Humans were no longer just assistants, servants, or minor engineers. They were observers, problem solvers, and partners. Across the galaxy, people began to see that humans could succeed where others failed, not through brute strength, not through size or firepower, but through thinking, patience, and courage. On the station, the noblewoman changed her approach. She stopped mocking, stopped judging by status, and began listening. She worked with humans, learning their ways, seeing their value. The human mechanic, quiet and humble, continued his work. He did not demand recognition, but his actions spoke louder than any title or medal. He repaired dragons, maintained the station, and showed that humans could make a difference quietly but powerfully. The dragon, once grounded and helpless, now soared through the station's halls, wings strong, tail flicking gracefully. It followed the human, trusted him completely, and responded to his guidance. Together, they became a symbol of what cooperation, trust, and patience could achieve. Other dragons and humans watched, learning that respect could be earned, not demanded, and that courage came in many forms. Historians recorded the events, noting that the Dragon Empire had faced a turning point. It was not war, not conquest, but a quiet act of understanding and care that changed minds. The human mechanic's story became a lesson. Strength was not measured by firepower or size, but by intelligence, patience, and empathy. The galaxy learned that humans, often dismissed as weak or simple, could achieve what many thought impossible. In the hangar, the noblewoman knelt beside the dragon, brushing a loose scale from its wing. She whispered softly, I see it now. I understand. The dragon trilled in response, and the human smiled faintly, watching them. He had not come to command, to conquer, or to lead. He had come to help, to repair, and to believe in what others ignored. And that belief had changed everything. Across the galaxy, humans were still underestimated in many places, still dismissed in some corners. But in this story, in this station, they had proven their worth. They had shown that courage could be quiet, power could be gentle, and success could come from seeing the value in what others overlooked. The Dragon Empire, the crew, and even the noblewoman had learned a truth they would not forget. Humans could rise not by dominating but by repairing, understanding, and trusting. The dragon lifted into the sky once more, wings strong, muscles powerful, eyes bright. The human watched from below, quiet, humble, yet proud. The noblewoman stood beside him, finally understanding that respect was not demanded, it was earned. And the galaxy, slowly but surely, learned the lesson too. Never underestimate a human. Because humans, when they care, when they observe, when they act with patience and thought, could change the course of dragons, stations, and entire worlds. And sometimes that quiet change was stronger than any fire, any roar, or any command.